Good evening, everyone. My name is Lucretia Robinson, and I am the chair of the Education Committee for the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Dallas Metropolitan Chapter. And we are excited on tonight to have you join us for a fireside chat with our own co-sister, Dr. Traci Perry and Sharetta Stewart Mays. And we are going to be talking tonight on a very important topic, which is called combating college and postgraduate depression. And as you know, that is a very important topic that is affecting many of our young Black women and girls. And we really want to make sure that we have an impactful discussion on tonight. And we just want to thank everyone for joining us. I'm going to turn it over to our president for welcome and remarks, and then I will come back to discuss the session agenda.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. The Dallas Metropolitan Chapter is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that was chartered on June 9, 2018, with 55 dynamic Black women leaders, including entrepreneurs, lawyers, doctors, educators, corporate executives, professionals, and philanthropists from various backgrounds. Together, we have embarked upon this journey to advocate on behalf of Black women and girls in the areas of health, education, economic empowerment, and civic engagement. Since our chartering in 2018, we have made significant strides towards accomplishing our mission through collaboration and building strategic alliances. We will continue to align ourselves with like-minded organizations who strive to move with purpose, passion, and power. Tonight, we have a very important topic, and it has to do in our field of health for mental health. We're so glad that you've joined us this evening. This is a conversation that is near and dear to my heart, as it is to so many other parents and students in college right now. Addressing mental health concerns with a fireside chat that is engaging and will inspire you to want to learn more and to understand more about protecting your mental health, safeguarding yourself while away from family and friends, and making sure you have a sense of connectedness and belonging where you are. And now I'll turn this session back over to Chair Lucretia Robinson so that she can move forward with introducing our esteemed speakers for tonight.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to go over the agenda for tonight. And just to let you know, we have such a good program planned for you. And I want to again thank all of the sisters that have joined us on this Thursday evening, because again, this is a really important topic. The agenda tonight is I will go over the session and the purpose. We will have a disclaimer, and then I will bring forth the introduction of the presenter on tonight. And then we're just going to chat. We're going to have a conversation where everybody is feeling comfortable. We can get our questions answered. This is going to be a good time. And then there will be time for question and answers. Then we'll have a wrap up. And then we will end with our first Vice President of Programs to do a thank you and a call to action. This time I'm going to turn it over to our co-sister, Lakeisha. But before, let me just go over the session purpose. Tonight, we're going to discuss what is college and postgraduate depression and how to overcome it. I'm sure that Dr. Traci Perry is going to give us some information on how we can identify college and postgraduate depression. And then, what are some of those symptoms? And then we will leave here with some tips and resources for managing the college and postgraduate depression. So you can see that we will have an impactful session.
Disclaimer for this session: the contents of this discussion, such as text, graphic, images, and other material contained are for informational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or qualified mental health providers with any questions you may have regarding a mental health condition. Never for professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something heard in this discussion. Now I turn it over to co-sister Sharetta Mays for the introduction of the speaker.
Thank you so much. Great evening, everyone. This is going to prove to be an exciting conversation, a nice fireside conversation with Dr. Perry covering a serious mental health issue. But we want it to be something that is, while very serious and very informative, we want to take some of the weight off of this topic. A lot of people, when they hear things like this, they have a heaviness about them. And so Dr. Perry is here tonight, and she has a wealth of information that she's able to share. Dr. Perry is a graduate of in several areas. Two of the main ones is Dr. Perry has an MBA as well as a doctorate degree, as well as an MBA. What is your other MBA in, Dr. Perry?
Another master's degree. I have a master's in social work.
Yes, a master's in social work and an MBA, as well as a doctorate degree in
social work.
Social work. So we have a young lady who is a powerhouse intellect, but she has also proven to be a powerhouse in her social and civic work, as well as her professional work. Dr. Perry has been well engaged in all levels of therapy, including government to private practice. So we know that she has been in this work since 1997. That's something else. And so we're just so happy to have her here with us this evening as she shares some of her insight with all of us. Welcome, Dr. Perry.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction.
So, Dr. Perry, let me ask you a question that everyone wants to know. Cat or dog?
Dog. Dog. I have two Yorkie dogs, so dog.
Okay. So tonight, we're going to start off with just like, we always like to start off like setting the scene. And while we want this to be a casual conversation, why don't you tell us a little bit about how do you define mental health?
Okay. So here's the thing. We all experience emotions. Emotions are normal. There are periods of time where we have sadness. There are periods of time where we have anxiety. Those are normal feelings and those are normal emotions. But growing up, we haven't been afforded the opportunity to discuss our emotions because especially in the African American community, many of you may be able to relate to this, that you're often told to, suck it up, quiet down, not talk about it, you'll be okay. And so we don't have a language to discuss our emotions. But emotions are normal. Feeling sad at times is normal if you have something disappointing that happens, or if you have a loss, it's normal to be sad. If you have a test coming up or you have a public speaking engagement like the one I'm doing right now, you can have some anxiety, and that's normal. We have a fight or flight response. And if we don't have a little bit of anxiety, we won't be able to perform. We won't be able to protect ourselves when we need to be safe. And we won't move like if someone says fire. So emotions are normal. It's just that when the person has these emotions and they are moderate or severe and they have difficulty functioning, that's when we say, okay, it's time to get help. It's time to get treatment because you're not functioning. You're not getting out of bed and you're not doing the things that you need to do to be able to function on a daily basis. So that's really when it's time to seek help, and we call it like a clinical depression. But there are different types of depression, and I think people need to be made aware of that. Depression could be of an adjustment disorder. So like if you are going through a life transition, like having a baby, or you may be going and starting a new job. So for a lot of college students, they're starting a new job, they're going to college. Those are what we call life transitions. And in response to that life transition, someone may have what we call an adjustment disorder or situational problems with a situational adjustment. But then there's also depression of a clinical nature. And that depression is a depression that is it can have a biological or genetic basis for it. So a lot of times like when I'm working with clients, one thing I always ask is about that family history. Is there anyone in your family who has depression? Is there anyone that you know in your family who's gone to therapy, taken medication, or even has committed suicide? Those are important things for us to know, because then it helps to inform us in terms of a diagnosis, whether this is an adjustment disorder or whether it's more of a clinical nature, a biological disorder that may require a different type of treatment. So yeah, go ahead.
Quick question. So you mentioned graduating from college or being postgraduate. You know, students who are currently in college. That's the audience we're targeting today, as well as those who have recently graduated. We know we have December graduates. We know we have some students coming up graduating in May, and there's sometimes a little bit of anxiety that goes along with that. So and you mentioned something about the type of depression that is there. Would you share a little bit more about that with us?
Sure, sure. Yeah, I mean, whenever we are facing like something new, a life transition, going to college, graduating from high school, graduating from college, you may have some emotions that come with that. And sadness can be, or depression which is also sadness, can be one of those things that a person can experience because of that life transition. There are a lot of things that come along with that. A lot of college students are dealing with leaving home for the first time, not living on their own, at the same time, having all of these expectations on them and feeling like they are not capable of meeting all of their expectations of people in their community, their family members, their parents. Also just a change because you've gone from, let's say, high school to college, and we know that the curriculum can get really difficult. And some people may not be prepared for that, so they start to feel sad. Graduating from college is another big issue because you're going into the real world where you're going to have to take responsibility for yourself, live on your own, pay your own bills, and may not feel prepared to do so. So in response to that, you may have individuals who may feel sad because of that. So some of the symptoms that come along with that is not sleeping very well or sleeping too much, not being involved in activities that you once previously enjoyed, feelings of worthlessness or hopelessness, may have appetite changes where you're eating too much or skipping meals, not eating at all. Can have some unexplained pain or headaches or things of that nature. Because sometimes sadness has, some physical symptoms that happen. And sometimes people will go and get help, or they'll go to the doctor or to the ER and have these unexplainable symptoms. And it's really the mental health issues that are going on. So, it's good to be aware of what symptoms, and if you're not doing really well, not functioning, not having energy or feeling fatigued, not being able to get out of bed, go to class, apply for a job, or things like that, then you may have a depression. I can't hear you.
You're on mute.
My gosh, we spent 2 years in a pandemic, and I should know how to be muted and unmuted. I'm so sorry. Gosh,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. So, what you mentioned those are some very pointed examples. So, what are some things that I could do if I say I'm really not feeling that way? What are some things I could do to combat that feeling? And if I'm already feeling some of those feelings, what are some things I might be able to do to come out of that feeling?
Sure. So here's the thing. It's really good. Here's the thing. This is what I tell clients too. You can take medication. You can go to therapy. We're not robots. And medication therapy is only going to do so much. But there are other things, and research has shown that, you have to do other things to maintain balance. And we have to be involved in activities that are meaningful, to redirect some of this stress or to alleviate some of the stress. So what the research shows is that there's a combination of things to have the most optimum outcome. So that may include medication if needed. That may include therapy, but also social interaction, being involved socially, in activities, volunteerism. We all know that when we're helping other people, it makes us feel good. Participating in recreation or leisure activities, getting that exercise in, getting that heart pumping, getting out, going for a walk, getting some fresh oxygen, eating a balanced diet is very, very important. And participating in a spiritual activities, whatever that means for you. All of those things combined, and I even tell my clients, you can come to therapy every week and you can take your medication, and yes, you will feel somewhat better, but we want to get you to a point where you can function, where you are feeling much better. You can do your activities of daily living. Activities of daily living meaning bathing, grooming, dressing, getting out of bed, eating, going to class, studying, applying for those jobs. So I always encourage them when we talk about coping strategies, that will help them get on a road to recovery. And so it's important that we all, achieve balance. When you're out of balance, or say you're working too much or you're studying too much and you don't have a life outside of that, you're going to start to feel depressed and isolated. You're on mute again.
Nope, didn't catch me. Nope, I was not. I was not.
Okay.
I was.
Okay.
I was. So and another those that's really great, to make sure I'm connected to the community, make sure I'm doing something, eating and exercise. But what if some of those things, I'm doing those things, but I just find that I feel like I'm sinking and I just can't get out. For instance, one of the questions we received earlier, I know I'm jumping in back and forth, but one of the questions we received earlier was like, what do I do? And if it looks like everybody else in the world is doing great. All my friends have great jobs now. They're all making six figures straight out of college, right?
Yeah.
So what are some things I might be able to do or see?
Right, right. What you have to do is not compare yourself. Comparison will get you every single time. We each have our own journey that we're on, and we each have our own pace that is set just for us, that we have to set for ourselves. And so when you're comparing yourself to other people, it's not going to be very effective, and you are going to feel depressed. Know that your own journey, your own story is your own, and cognitively reframing that helps people to realize, okay, I just need to stay in my own lane. I need to focus on myself and not focus on everyone else. With social media, people have a tendency to do a lot of comparisons. But what I tell like clients, because I have a lot of, college students or people in this age range from 18 to 26, I tell them that half the time when you're looking at those TikTok videos, you're looking at Facebook and Instagram, people are doing things to get viewers. They're doing things to get subscribers. And sometimes they just aren't being truthful. They aren't telling the truth about what really is going on. So what they're presenting is not always an honest picture of what truly is going on in their lives. And so if you're comparing yourself to that, it may not be an accurate picture. So you really want to focus on yourself, your well-being, your journey, and what you need to do for yourself in order to get to the place where you need to be in life. Also have
Right.
to practice some self-compassion, and realize that, you may not be there yet, but you're gonna get there. Think about the times when you've achieved success. Think about the times when you've had some good things happen in your life. And that's one thing I do in therapy. It's called cognitive behavior therapy. And I get people to think about, tell me about a time in your past when you had success, when you achieved some really good things. What does that look like? Tell me more about that. And as they start to talk about that and remember, then it's like, yeah, I was successful. I did do some good things that I'm very proud of. And so when they start to think about those things, then it helps them to realize that although they're not there right now, they will get there. They have the skills, they have the resources, they have the things within themselves to get to the place where they want to be. But we have to be realistic though. So a lot of times you just have to do a reality check. Like, what's really going on here? What's factual about what I'm thinking? What's not so factual? And what would I tell my best friend? A lot of times we are better friends to our friends than we are to ourselves. And we have to be our own best friend and say, hey, friend, I'm going to be okay. And I am smart. I am capable. I will get through this. This is a difficult time. This is a temporary situation, but I can and I will, and I know that I will get to the place where I want to be in life. And we have to do some positive self-talk as well.
Wow. Positive self-talk is very important. I know we're speaking to a particular group, those college to postgraduate students, young people, but that hits home to so many, to me, to so many, to just everybody. That's great. That's a great tip to have. And so with that, it means that you're kind of encouraging affirmations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I even tell, my clients, listen, get you a sticky note, put it on your mirror, write all of these positive affirmations about yourself. And when you're brushing your teeth, when you're going in your refrigerator, remind yourself of who you are and what you've accomplished and what you've done and whose you are. And so you can be clear on that. Remind yourself of that because sometimes that negative thinking, I call it stinking thinking, will take over. And then you'll start to, have these irrational thoughts that just simply aren't true. So we work on that in therapy, and we work on that positive self-talk. We work on challenging those negative thoughts, and engaging in reality checks so that that person really knows that, okay, what I'm thinking is not totally rational. It's irrational, and it's not even effective. And so in order to get to where I need to be, I need to have more effective thoughts about myself and my feelings of worth.
We have a comment, and I'm going to go into the chat a little bit. We kind of, co-sister Lucretia, pardon me, but we had a couple. I'm going to be popping in and out there here. Comment says, I recently graduated college and haven't been able to get a job. I feel like I didn't do enough while I was in college to prepare for after college. And it's hard to look back on past successes because of this. What do you have to say to this person who is struggling with that? You talk about the mirror activity, you talk about that affirmations, like sometimes like like that's just not enough sometimes. So what do you say to
Right,
this person?
right. I mean, here's the thing, when people come out of college, and I'm one of them, I can just tell you my story. I majored in psychology. And so a lot of people said, oh, you're not going to be able to do very much with that psychology degree. And I knew that I was going to have to go to graduate school. I was going to have to get that master's degree in order to keep going in my career, my preferred career. So when I first started and I graduated from school, I worked in sales, inside sales. It had nothing to do with psychology. I was selling computers. And so, but I was able to use those skills, those, inside sales to excel in that particular career because I did have a psychology background. But I knew that that was just a pit stop for me. That was not going to be a permanent stop. I was going to do that because it paid the bills. And my father was like, listen, here are your bills. I'm no longer paying your car note or your insurance. Here you go. And I had to be responsible and pay my bills. It was challenging. It was difficult, but at the same time, I realized that that was not my ending. That was only a pit stop. It was a means to an end. Um, and I worked that job to the best of my ability. I excelled in it, and I put it on my resume. And then I was able to get other jobs after that, and even go back to graduate school. So know this, that even though you may have to take a job that may not be in your preferred career, it doesn't mean that that's the end of your story or that you have to stay right there. I have a example I have a client who was working for a retail corporation, and she was saying, you know, Dr. Perry, I feel stuck. I feel really, really stuck. I have this job. It's not stressful. It's not challenging. I feel really stuck. I'm working this retail job. And she said, I want to do more, but I don't know how to get there. And so we started to explore. And I said, you know, this major corporation that you're working for, very large international corporation. I said, what kind of resources do they have that you can avail yourself of? I said, because here's the thing, you work in this job right now. It's not as stressful. That's what you told me. You have the ability to work on other things while you're doing this job. I said, tell me the good thing about this job. She said, the good thing about this job is that I'm able to pay my bills. I'm able to keep a roof over my head. I'm able to pay the rent. I said, great. Tell me the negative things. It's not so challenging. I said, and she was like, this is not what I want to do in my career. And I just don't feel highly motivated to do the job. I said, what do you want to do with your preferred career? You talked about your preferred career several times. So what is that? She said, I want to go back to school. I want to get a degree in marketing, or in graphic design. I want to do something in that field. I said, great. I said, you work for an international corporation. What kind of resources do they have for education? She said, now that you think of it, Dr. Perry, they will pay for my education in full, as long as it's in a degree related to something that I can use on this job. And she said, I like the corporation. I think the corporation is excellent. It has excellent benefits. It has provided me with healthcare benefits that I so need. Um, she said, and I said, yeah, exactly. I said, so here's what you're saying. You're saying to me that the job is not challenging. It's not stressful. What better opportunity for you to go back to school right now, use the educational resources that they're going to pay for to go back to school and still be able to work a job that's going to keep a roof over your head where you're not stressed out. Mm-hmm. I said, so you have an opportunity. And so she thought about it and she said, you know, you're right, Dr. Perry. You're right. You're right. So she went back the following week. She talked to the human resources representative. They gave her the information on how to apply for the educational benefits. She went, she looked at colleges and universities that had her major, and she enrolled in college. And she was able to get that corporation to pay for her education on a job that she's not that stressed out about. Now, I told her, I said, just think about if you had a job that was stressful, that was very challenging and all of that. How would you finish school? She said, you're right, Dr. Perry. I said, yeah, it's a means to an end.
Yeah.
So,
there's multiple routes,
there are multiple routes to achieve and get to where you need to go in life. So I'm one of those people.
Here, and so that one lends to, we have two things that's really interesting. I'm in this chat, and this chat is deep.
Yes.
So there's one I'm going to tell you. I'm going to choose this one because this is close to home. I have a December 1 graduate myself, right? So what can parents do to be more supportive of the challenges our children may face while transitioning without swooping in with the savior complex?
Okay. Okay, so here's the thing. You know, when you say savior complex, are you saying in terms of applying for a job for them or helping them get the job and all this kind of stuff?
I think President Nancy Wallace put that one in. So you want to explain a little bit with that?
Madam President.
Since we're having this fireside chat.
Yes, since we're having this fireside chat, helping them apply for their first apartment, getting the first car, co-signing on everything, pushing them towards our company because we have a good company that with great benefits, pushing them towards the things that we know that we're doing without allowing them the space to learn and grow, like I had to learn and grow.
Right. And here's the thing: you don't want to swoop in and do it for them. It's okay to provide them with information. So I'm a clinical social worker. I've been, one since 1997. So from our perspective, we don't rescue folks. So we do provide information, and we provide encouragement, and we And like I used to tell my clients, listen, I want you to make these phone calls. And if you get stuck, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. You can call me. I can come in and help you, but I want you to try first. So I always used to encourage my clients to make the phone calls themselves, to try to navigate it first. I would give them the information. And then if they got stuck, then I would come and provide some assistance. But I wanted to give them the opportunity and I wanted to empower them to try first to help themselves. And that's really what you want to do. Um, because you don't want them to become dependent on you. You want them to feel confident about their ability to be able to handle things in their own life and to get things accomplished for themselves. So it's just giving them the information, encouragement, letting them know that you're there for them if they need it, but you really want to empower them and encourage them to make the phone calls themselves, whether than you filling out the application or helping them look for jobs or apply for jobs. They need to be able to do that. We all had to do that. So they need to be able to do that. And we want to kind of step back and allow them the opportunity and the space to do it.
Co-sister
Okay, Dr. Perry.
Christine has her hand raised. Co-sister Sharetta.
Okay, thank you. Co-sister Christine, you had a question. I see your hand.
Yes, co-sister Sharetta. Co-sister Judith, she had a question, and the question was, with our college students so far away and out of our sight, how can parents know that our young adult is in trouble and needs help? Often parents don't know until it's too late.
Right.
Ooh,
Right.
that's good.
You know, you have to, here's the thing. A lot of times we send kids to college, and I was one of them. My parents dropped me off. They were like, see ya, without any kind of conversations. And I felt very lost. Um, I didn't even know how to wash my own clothes. My mom stood in the laundry room and showed me how to wash my clothes at 18 on campus. So I was not prepared to be on that campus. And so I just wished that, and if you can think about yourself and think about when you went to college, I wish that my parents would have had those, what I call crucial conversations with me before I left home, just about life. So here's the thing. I find that young adults are open and transparent and willing to get help when there's less stigma, and they're willing to reach out when they know that they're not going to be judged for it, and that what they say is going to be taken seriously, and they're going to actually get the help that they need. So as parents, you know, it's crucial that you have these conversations with them about your own experience. You know, we want to normalize the feelings that they have. We want to normalize this fear, normalize this anxiety, normalize going into the real world. We want to validate them and let them know, hey, I've been there. I know what it feels like. It is scary going into, you know, leaving home, going to college, living on your own. That's a scary thing.
But what if Dr. Perry, what if the young person is not as forthcoming? Sometimes, and I understand what Sister Judith is saying. Sometimes right. a lot of parents don't know. The student may not, the young person, the student may not, and even some of the college students on the call right now, they just don't feel comfortable with that. So how do we, one, get them to feel comfortable, even if they don't want to talk to the parents, using the resources they have on campus, or right. if they're graduates, how do we get them comfortable with reaching out to say, this is not a weakness, but I feel myself sinking.
Right. The comfortable is, and that's why I was dressing, is number one, you want to validate their experience and you want to normalize it. Normalizing it means I've been there. This was my experience. I know how scary that can be. Because I tell you, whenever I'm in therapy and I have clients that come to me, when I tell them I get it. I get what you're saying. That's a very scary thing that you're going through. Then they immediately open up because they're like, she gets it. She understands. She's not judging me. She understands how difficult this is for me. So that's why I was saying before that as a parent, we have to normalize their experience. We have to validate their experience, and we have to let them know that we get what they're going through, that it is a very scary thing to leave home. It's a very scary thing to graduate and go into the real world and pursue a career. And you know, even talk about our own experiences and being transparent about the things that we went through and how we, you know, felt. And then you'll see that they start to open up because they know that you get it.
But how do you avoid that comparison part, right? Because I guess these are my toes you're stepping on, right? So how do you avoid that? Because oftentimes you hear people, parents tell kids, "Oh, I walked 2 miles in the snow."
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, 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 no. I'm saying,
right?
yeah, exactly.
So how do you have that conversation
Right,
without saying,
right.
"I did it this way," or your experience? Because sometimes we haven't had that experience. How do parents have that conversation?
Okay.
How do they have
So what I'm saying is, yes, a lot of my father does that. Oh, I walked 2 miles in the snow. But when I confront him and I challenge him, he says, yeah, it was a nerve-wracking experience. It was a scary experience. We all, if you're honest with yourself, even though you may have walked 2 miles in the snow, you sure were scared going walking down the street. So we have to be honest with ourselves and be transparent enough to put down our pride and be able to have a honest and open dialogue and conversation with this young adult. Because a lot of times, like for instance, today I talked to a college student. She said, sometimes I don't call my parents because number one, I think that I'm calling too much. Or number two, I think they're not going to be happy with me. I said, you're mind reading. We have a tendency to try to read other people's mind, and we try to think, you know, about what they feel, what they think. There's no way we can know that. And I told her that. I said, you're mind reading. How do you know that your parents think that way or they have those expectations for you? She said, I don't, Dr. Perry. I said, exactly. So, you know, by letting our kids know that that their experience is a scary one, and you know, we can all identify with that, that it is a new one, and anytime you have change, it's going to be you know, scary. Not trying to say, well, I did it and you can do it. You're not trying to say that. You're just validating their feelings. You're just normalizing their feelings. And that's just it. You're not talking about your experience because your experience is going to be different from their experience, but you are validating their response. You're validating their feelings, and you're telling them, "Hey, I'm here for you. I want to hear about what's going on for you. I am never too busy for you. You can call me." Um, like I told a college student today, she cried because she said I had to drop a class. She's a freshman taking a junior English class, and she said, I had to drop a class and I'm disappointed in myself. I said, listen, you made a wise decision. You made a wise choice for yourself. You're telling me you're a freshman, you were taking a junior English class. It was two grades above where you are. That's wise because number one, you're not capable of doing it right now emotionally and mentally. And number two, if you would have kept doing that class, you probably, you may have failed, and then you wouldn't feel so great. And then, your parents wouldn't feel so great because you'd be wasting their money and their tuition. It's better for you to be honest with yourself and to be honest with your parents. And people can deal with that. People can say, you know what? I get that. I said, so you made a very wise choice and a very wise decision for yourself. So you have to be confident and stand in that. What kids, these young adults, sometimes they lack the confidence because a lot of helicopter parenting has happened. And a lot of times parents have stepped in and they have not let this generation Y and beyond deal with those difficult things that we had to deal with. Like, I'm from Generation X. There's a joke on Facebook that says, don't mess with them. Don't mess with them because, we were latchkey kids. We were very independent. I don't know about y'all, but I had to let myself in. And so, my mom was like, don't touch that TV. Don't cook anything hot. Make your cold sandwich. Sit down and do your homework. And that's what we did. And we had to rely heavily on ourselves to really get things done. But this generation has gone to the total opposite and has done a lot of rescuing. So we want to get away from that, and empower this generation to know that yes, you are making good decisions for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have a question from Twasana Lewis. And this is a really interesting one. I think that'll connect several questions there. And we'll get to some more questions there. We have oh my gosh, it's some good ones. Twasana, you want to come off mute to ask your question, or would you like me to read it for you?
Yes, I moved the
Yes,
slide
I
to the
can come
question
off.
page because it is the
Good
questions are
evening.
coming in.
Thank you. Okay.
And come off mute. Good evening, and just thank you for having this. This is so necessary with the current state that I am now. But anyway, my question was that I am a graduate student, and sometimes my internal narratives are overwhelmingly negative. And I know today they refer to this as imposter syndrome. So I just wanted to know, what strategies could I use to deal with those moments of self-doubt?
Yes. Yeah. So when it comes to feeling like an imposter, you want to think about those times when you have achieved success, right? You want to look back. You want to think about when you've achieved success, what the positive outcome was. How did you get there? What resources did you use? What skills did you use? Um, and you're here today for this reason. A lot of times we forget that, hey, I made it. I faced something quite difficult, but through it all, I made it. How did you make it? So that's why I ask my clients. I operate from a strengths-based perspective, and I'm like, what are some of the strengths that you have? Let's think about that. Let's talk about that. Let's think back on when you had something difficult and you were able to accomplish it. What did you do? What skills did you use? How did you accomplish that? And then, they will start to talk about that. And they're like, yeah, I did do something very difficult and it was hard, but I did it. Exactly. So for you, it's thinking about all of those times when you did achieve success, when you did well, and thinking about how you accomplished that, what resources, what skills did you use to do that, and challenging those negative thoughts, because that's really what it is. Those are negative thoughts that we all deal with. And so really want to challenge those, like what's factual about what you're thinking, what's not so factual about what you're thinking.
And
And a lot of times, what I was going to say, a lot of times what you'll find is you will find that those things that are not factual, I'm sorry, the things that are factual that don't support that thinking will outweigh the things that support the thinking. So things that don't will outweigh those that do. Because a lot of times I'll ask my clients, they'll come up with one thing. I'm like, yeah, anything else? No, Dr. Perry. And then they'll come up with a whole 10 list of things that don't even support that negative thinking. And it's like, you're right. You're right. I did do those things. So, get a piece of paper, divide it down the middle. On one side, you put, these are things that supports this thinking that I'm not worth it, or that I'm not going to do well. And these are the things that do. And you will find that the things that support this thinking that you are better than you think you are will totally outweigh the things that don't. So that's what I encourage you to do, is challenge those thoughts.
And thank you for the bravery to ask that question this evening, because that tells us that you're leaning in to the positive. You're leaning in to get that. And every woman here is successful in some way. And if we're honest, 90% of us have felt that way at some time. I'm not going to say 100% because I hate to make guarantees, right? But 90% of us have felt that way at some time. So thank you so much for asking that very brave question. Thank you for leaning in.
Thank you, and thank you for providing that feedback. I'm definitely going to take that and apply it as best as I can.
Yeah.
Co-sister Christine, you had your hand up for another question.
Yes, I see a couple of questions in the chat. One of the questions that was asked is there a difference between depression and bipolarism?
Yes, there is a difference. And there are different types of depression, just so that you will all know. I think it's important to know that. Like during this winter time, when it's really cold outside and the sun, you leave home, it's dark, you're coming home, it's dark. So a lot of people have what is called seasonal affective disorder. And so it's because there's not a lot of sunlight, for a long period of the day. And so some people tend to get really depressed around this winter time. Another type of depression is, we call it, it has to do with your menstrual cycle, where a lot of women will get depression around that time of the month when they're going to have a menstrual cycle. And it's because of the change in hormones. So that's another type of depression. The depression I talked about earlier was the adjustment disorder. So that's a depression that's related to situations that are going on in our lives, which are, overwhelming. And so that's another type of depression. Then we have the biological depression, where someone may experience depression, but they never have like a lift. So they're depressed all the time, even when good stuff is happening. So they could get a raise on their job, they could get a promotion, they could have done quite well and still be depressed. So we call that like a clinical depression. And that's the depression that tends to run in families. So if you have a family history where individuals in your family may have depression or have gone to treatment or even have committed suicide, you may want to talk to your doctor about the fact that you might have a biological depression, which might, require that you take medication for it. Now, bipolar depression is something that's different. And bipolar depression is something that comes out, or this tends to show up around late adolescence to the 20s. And during that time, you have an individual which has, periods when they're feeling really low and depressed, to mood swings when they're feeling really, really high and what we call manic. So during those manic phases, they may have periods where they're involved in this goal-directed behavior. They don't sleep, or they're engaging in some high-risk behaviors. Could be hypersexuality, could be overspending, gambling, just being engaged in really high-risk behaviors, but not really thinking about the consequences of those behaviors. And when they go back to the depressed state, they realize what has happened. And it's like, oh my gosh, I've spent my rent money. So that's the difference between bipolar depression, because you have the highs and the lows, the manic and the depressed, and then regular depression.
Wow. Thank you. We have another one. Tiffany Jones, you want to come off mute, ask your question?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this conversation. I did have a question, just like what's the best way to deal with pressure about what's next? Like even though I know what I want to do in the future, just the stress and anxiety of everything I have to do has me so paralyzed, like I can't even begin to take the steps.
Okay. So here's the thing. I often talk about mindfulness. We always want to stay in the present moment of today. There's a saying that says if we look back, we think about all these things that have happened, we become depressed. If we look too far ahead, we get really, really anxious. And we don't really have control over the future, but we have control over today. So you want to stay in the present moment of today. And when I have clients who come and they have a lot of anxiety and stress, I say, let's talk about goal setting. Let's break this down into smaller parts. So, what do you need to get done today? What do you need to get done for this week? What do you need to get done for this month versus what is your goal 5 or 6 years from now? Because sometimes when you have anxiety, you think about all of these things about what you want to do. You have all of these goals, and some of the goals are more so long-term goals than they are short-term goals. So you want to be able to distinguish between what's more intermediate, short-term versus long-term, and you want to write those down. And the thing is, you really want to focus on and stay focused on your short-term, immediate goals for now. And the ones that are more longer term, write those down, put a pin in it, and put it on your vision board, your bulletin board. But don't really focus on those right now. You just want to stay in the present moment of today and work on those things that you have control over today. And that's really how you can alleviate some of the stress of looking too far ahead. So that's one thing. The second thing is what I talked about earlier with the coping strategies. Really want to maintain some balance in your life. Like I tell clients all the time, you know, an idle mind is a devil's workshop. And if you're sitting in the house and you're staring at four walls, your mind is going to race and you're going to think and think and think, and you can go right on down a rabbit hole with thinking. So I always tell my clients, get up, you know, give yourself, you got 30 minutes, set you a kitchen timer, turn that timer on. When that timer goes off, you cannot think anymore. You know, you got the ability to write everything down in your journal. Don't think anymore. When that timer goes up, get up and go do something more positive for yourself, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's, you know, engaging in some exercise, whether it's, you know, calling someone on the phone or, you know, engaging socially, whether it's going to do some volunteerism, do something else more positive than your day than to think about all the things that are going wrong or that may go wrong. You know, and that will help to relieve some of that stress and that anxiety as well. And another thing too is practicing mindfulness. I talked about being present and being present in the moment of today. So whenever you are doing those activities, you want to be fully present in those activities. You don't want to be thinking about, you know, the job interview. You don't want to be thinking about, you know, all of these things that you really have no control over. You really want to focus on where you are at that moment. If it's going for a walk, engage your five senses. What do I see? What do I hear? What can I smell? What can I taste? What can I touch? I tell clients all the time, go outside, sit on your porch. Now it's kind of cold right now, but when it's a little bit warmer, um, practice mindfulness where you can sit with nature and you will be surprised because we're always in autopilot. We run and run and run and run, and we don't slow down enough to really even experience life. And if you sit on your front porch and you engage your five senses and you're present in that moment, you can hear like butterflies buzzing by. You can hear the bees. You can, you know, hear the plane going over, things that we don't even pay attention to because we're just in autopilot. Your mind needs those times when it can get a break from all of that. So I would encourage you to engage in those things. And if the stress is becoming too much, get therapy. You know, seek therapy, talk to someone, because it's good too to also get those things out of your head, have someone to talk to, you can bounce things off of, who can also give you feedback. That would be helpful too, to help reduce some of that stress.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think that Dr. Perry, you have given us all a wealth of information to think about, and the actionable items are just were just fantastic. I love that you were very specific. Co-Sister Kristen, are there any more questions I may have missed there?
Yes, I see a couple of more questions, and I have a few questions here. One more question I see in the chat is, it says, adulting is a popular term used now. Adulting is really tough for everyone. How can this be addressed?
I think we have to be proactive, you know, and you know, painting a more realistic picture of what adulting is like. We just cannot assume that young adults are going to know what that's like. Sometimes they don't have a realistic view of what it's like to become an adult because of what they see on the social media. And I'm not bashing social media. I think social media is great. It's just that sometimes young adults are presented like with this picture of, you know, these lavish lifestyles. I'm making a six-figure salary. I'm living this lavish life, and I have this house and this car and this. And again, you know, with some of that, it's I want viewers, I want subscribers, so I'm going to paint this picture. Who's going to subscribe to somebody's page where they're not living this lavish lifestyle? They're struggling. Who's going to subscribe to that? No one. So we have to be realistic and realize that sometimes what we're presented online is not always the truth. It's not always presented in a truthful manner, and that people do put things out there to get viewers and to get subscribers. So we want to really help individuals, have a realistic view of what it's like to adult. Like for the kids in my house, they're adolescents now, so we've been playing Life and Monopoly. And I know that y'all are laughing, but here's the thing. When we talking about life, that's when we start to have those conversations of what it's like to pay some bills, what it's like to have, because like my son is like, well, do I want children now or do I want to wait? Do I want to have all these friends? Because with life, you play the game. It's like, you can add on some friends. My son was like, no, I don't want to add on a friend. I can't afford it. So we start to having those realistic conversations and being proactive early on can really, really help them to know what it's truly, truly like to adult.
Okay, I have another question. The question is, many young adults have a type or perspective where their success becomes the most overwhelming thing because they fear to disappoint their parents. What can we do? What can we do to help them overcome that without pushing ourselves that we fall deeper?
Okay. So from a parent perspective, you just want to be careful about putting your own stuff on your kids. Like if you didn't, like a lot of times, sometimes if we didn't accomplish things or if we would have wanted a certain thing to happen in our lives, we'll sometimes put that on our kids. You have to be really, careful about doing that. Like I have young adults in my family, and so when I talk to them, I said, listen, this is your life and you have to live it and you want to live it without any regrets. So you want to, have the occupation and have the job that you want to have. Because I have a young adult in my family who struggles with what occupation to do, disappointing her parents, and so forth. And so I said, listen, you have to do what you think is best. Because like I tell her, if you put your mind to anything, you can do just about anything. We need writers, we need artists, we need, like my son, he says he's going to be an NFL player. You know what I say? Go for it. Go for it. If that's what you want to do, play to your heart's content. Put your effort into that skill and practice, 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 practice. But I don't limit him when he's telling me he wants to be these things. I say, you can do those things. You can do whatever you put your mind to. And I think that young adults have to know that, if they make a choice about their life, if they make some decisions, that it's okay to make those decisions. Like I told the young adults in my family, you're going to change your major several times. You may even change your job. You may even change your occupation. I know I did. I've been a social worker. I've been an accountant. I've been a grants manager, a business manager. I've been a therapist. So I have changed my occupation several times. I have several degrees. You don't always know what you want to do until you start doing it. And it's okay for them not to know. It's okay for them to try some things out. And it's okay if you fail, because if you fail, then you learn from that. So we have to give them the space and the room to try some things, even when we don't feel like it may work out for them. Let them try it. Let them see for themselves. And that's what, the young adults in my family wish they had parents who didn't say, because like sometimes they're like, well, my family says I'm not going to be anything. I'm not going to make any money. I'm going to be poor. I said, who says that? And she was like, well, my family. I said, listen, you can do whatever you put your mind to. You may have to hustle, but you can do it. You can do it.
Thank you. That is again, very pertinent information. And I love it that you gave some direct examples for those things. We have to wrap up, and this is like we have so much more we could cover here.
Yes.
You've been so fantastic and amazing, Dr. Perry. Thank you so much for your time. There will be ways to keep in contact with you. Dr. Perry will put that out there for us. But thank you again for your time, and I appreciate this conversation. Co-sister Lucretia?
I am just floored, and I know, forgive me, you all, because I keep moving the screen. I know y'all kept seeing me move the screen back and forth because I was trying to take notes, especially when she was talking to the young lady Tiffany Jones. But again, I just want to say on behalf of our president, Nancy Wallace, our vice president, Retta Washington McCoy, and our co-sisters that are on the education committee. This has been so amazing. Madam President says we may need to do a part 2 of this because this is so good and it's so much information that is needed. And I want to give just a little bit of time to our first vice president of programs to do the closing and call of action. And again, we just want to thank Dr. Traci Perry and Sharetta for this, really good conversation. Hopefully next time maybe we can be in a room and we can talk and have a really, really good dialogue and just give so much more information. But Dr. Perry, we just thank you so much. And I'm going to turn it over now to our first vice president of programs, first vice president, Retta Washington McCoy, for our call to action.
It's okay. That is quite all right. Thank you, Coalition Sister Robinson. Coalition Sister Dr. Perry, yes, and Coalition Sister Shredder Stewart Mays, thank you all for an amazing conversation this evening. I echo Madam President. A part 2 would be really, really nice. I feel like we could have chatted with you all another 3 hours. And there are a lot of things, much like Coalition Sister Robinson said, taking notes. There are a lot of things that, even though I'm way past being a student, that hit home with me too when we talk, when we think about, being in the workplace. So thank you so much for how you were able to make this conversation relevant, particularly to our students, but to all of us, so we could relate and have the empathy that we need to actually help our young people as they navigate certain waters. We do also want to remind you, before we move to our call to action, that this content was intended for informational purposes. And so we always want to make sure that you are seeking professional advice for your specific scenario and situation. We've gotten a lot of great advice tonight, a lot of great nuggets, but please remember that for your specific situation, please seek any professional medical advice that is needed for your situation. With that said, if for some reason you find yourself or a friend, a loved one, a relative in a crisis situation, if you this would be a great screen, if you are able to take a snapshot of, we have some information on this screen to kind of help you through those situations. We have a hotline number that you can utilize. If you or someone is struggling with college or postgraduate depression, it is important to seek help. And so we want to make sure that you are able to do so and have resources to start figuring out where you get that help. We know asking for help can be scary, but you might fear rejection or ridicule, or you might fear losing control, but there is nothing, doing nothing is even more risky. So we do invite you to connect with us. Continue to follow us on social media, learn more about our upcoming programs. There is also some resources here. Dr. Perry's information is here. And there are a couple of websites here also that you can utilize if you need any additional help or support with tonight's topic. With that said, we appreciate each and every one of you for joining us this evening. And we do hope that you will continue to follow us and join us for our next conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.